Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. This is an international event. We're so glad to have you here with us today. We want to welcome you to the Tech Leadership Labs inaugural summit, the intersection of climate, AI, and humanity. Here we aim to move the needle and start solving those SDGs sooner with a focus on climate. We're gathered here united by a shared mission to harness the power of technology, leadership, and collective wisdom in addressing the most pressing climate challenges of our time. In the face of unprecedented environmental concerns, this summit represents a beacon of hope, a call to action, and a testament of what we can achieve together. What if we already have the solutions and with the help of AI, we can find a way to implement them? Is that a question that you've ever thought of? Can we muster a common will and construct a shared narrative to unite us all in solving existential problems? Each speaker and participant brings invaluable expertise and perspective to this crucial topic for gaining answers that are needed to make the most impact. TLL, the Tech Leadership Lab, stands for the impact amplifier for all those building for the future, committed as an action-oriented think tank to pushing boundaries and influencing decision makers to act rightly today. This panel will provide valuable insights that will become part of a final consensus document, which will be drafted during the last panel tomorrow. We invite you to participate, share your views, ask questions, and help create a better future. It's time for action. So let's go over some quick housekeeping rules for the TLL Summit. So our sessions are 2 hours with a 15-minute break after the first hours. We will have a Q&A during the second part of the session, but please feel free to add comments and questions during any part of the session. We have our members that are monitoring the chat to make sure that your voice is heard. Our Climate Guardian survey will be a great way where you can basically have lots of fun. We have something called the Fun Zone, and for more details about that and the raffle prizes associated with it, please check out techleadershiplab.org/fun zone, a really cool place. Finally, our participants have all volunteered their time and expertise to the summit, so let's please be supportive and respectful of their contributions. And again, I just wanted to thank everyone for being here with us today. And as we gather here today, it's impossible to ignore the gravity of the situation. Climate change isn't just knocking on our doors, it's breaking them down. But amidst the challenges, there's a spark of hope. And that spark is AI. Artificial intelligence isn't it just about fancy algorithms and sci-fi dreams, as we all thought it was in the past? It's about practical solutions for real-world problems. From predicting climate patterns to optimizing resource management, AI holds incredible potential to revolutionize our fight against climate change. We are thrilled to have such an incredible lineup of experts joining us today, individuals who are pioneers in their fields, they're trailblazers in innovation, and champions of sustainability. Together, we're going to dive deep into the ways AI can supercharge our efforts towards a greener, more sustainable future. Throughout our discussion, we're not just here to talk, we're here to inspire action. We will be asking some tough questions, sharing experiences, and crafting tangible recommendations that can drive real change for the world. So buckle up, folks. We're about to embark on a journey of discovery, collaboration, and hopefully transformation. Welcome to the summit. Let's roll up our sleeves and let's make a difference. So first, we'd like to start off with welcoming our esteemed panelists that we have here today. We're going to go over their names first, and then we're going to go a little bit more into them in terms of their bios. So we have Katrina Montanola, Mark, known as Global Mark, Minovich, Maya Sherman, and Francis Dion. So first, I'd like to start out with reviewing the profile of, let's see who we can start out with today. We're going to start out with Katrina. So Katrina, if you would be able to come on the mic and, could you tell us about yourself? We'd love to learn more about you.
Sure. Well, I actually have a slide on that, but I don't have to put it up. I'm your typical techie I have a computer science degree from Georgia Tech, and I've been in Silicon Valley since 1990, working mainly my area of specialization was the networking. So I worked on internet startups. And my last job, I was VP of engineering of a medical simulation software company. And that's kind of how I got interested in AI. We didn't call it AI then, but it was basically modeling to answer questions for healthcare related questions for the population, and also individual questions. And I'm still here in Silicon Valley. And now I'm basically a consultant, helping small, medium-sized businesses implement AI.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And do you have your slides? Would you
Do you
like
want
to
me
share?
to? Do you
Yeah,
want
you
me
could.
to share my slides? Okay.
Yeah, let's share the slides. Let's give you your time right now. This is great. Thank you so much.
Okay. So this is I'm so happy to be here. Like I said, my last job, I was doing AI for healthcare. And that's really what got me interested in using technology to help people and to solve big problems. And so now when I got invited to this panel, I was very excited because I'm not a climate expert by any means, but it is another big challenge that AI can definitely help solve. So I'm really excited about that. This is my massively transformative purpose. I'm a member of the OpenEXO community, and that's actually how I met a lot of people here. And I'm really trying to live this every day. I'm trying to fuel world-changing solutions like climate change with AI and my Silicon Valley background. This is my early technical background. I already kind of like talked about it. So I'm not going to go and read this. So I guess what I wanted to say was that how I got so involved in AI is, in 2022, there was a pivotal moment when ChatGPT was released. And it reminded me so much about the release of Mosaic, because I'm a networking expert, internet, and looking back at that, I'm like, wow, the internet definitely changed all our lives, and I'm convinced that AI is going to do the same thing. Actually, I think it's even going to be more transformative than the internet. So I'm really excited about that, and so that's why after ChatGPT came out, I'm like, okay, I need to learn all I can about AI. And so I took a bunch of classes, got certified in machine learning, natural language processing, and stuff like that. And so that's where I'm headed now. I just want to help anybody out there who has any questions, needs any work done. A techie like me can help. I'm I'm happy to help. Um, First thing I wanted to do was talk a little bit about machine learning. You know, the interesting thing about it is that like in the old days, and this was the same for me when I was VP of engineering of that of Archimedes, that medical simulation company. Um, we were trying to answer these big questions, but we had to do it by our company had like a dozen data scientists, and basically they were writing all these equations based on all these um, clinical trials that were coming out, and then we would put it in the simulator. That was the old way of doing um, research, this type of thing. And that was the same with climate change. You basically just had to do it. It was really, really slow, very, very expensive. So the thing that changed is that we got the right hardware, which are called GPUs or special chips. there's a ton more data out there now. Like 15 years ago when I was working on that startup, there wasn't a lot of online data, and so machine learning was able to replace these scientists and what we were doing back then. And so machine learning is basically just a way of like throwing this data at a computer and having that computer figure out all the connections and all that. And so today, I really, really believe that AI can really make a big difference in solving some of our climate challenges. So these are just examples of things that AI can do. Analyzing big data sets, looking at trends, optimizing resource allocation, finding new technologies like for battery storage solutions. Because the other day I was listening to a podcast, and they were saying that actually energy generation is not the problem, especially because solar power and wind power and all that have come down so much. It's actually the storage to find to have the power when we need it. And so AI is even helping that, because they're figuring, AI is helping find better storage solutions. These are just examples of successful use of AI. I found this really cool report from the World Economic Forum, and they talked about all these real world examples of how AI is now being used to combat climate change. And what I loved about looking at all these is that it just gave me hope. I mean, it's like, wow, there's so many people now all over the world figuring out how we can tackle this. So it's really given me a lot of hope that we will be able to do this. Just more examples. And then this is where I found these examples. So if people want to just go in there, or maybe in our discussion later, we can we can dive deeper down and talk about different some of these different solutions. But you know what, I have to acknowledge that that AI right now also a little bit contributes to the climate problem, because all these large language models are really heavy duty users of power and to train, and also even to run. So there's a lot. AI now has a pretty big carbon footprint, but researchers are really actively developing methods to reduce the impact. And in fact, just a day ago, I learned about liquid neural networks, which sounds like it could be one of these solutions. So I'm hopeful. Yes, AI is contributing a little bit in the short term, but I strongly believe in the long term, AI will be here to help address our climate issues. That's it. I mean, if you want to, get a hold of me, this is sort of the easiest way to do so. I'm now part of a consulting company, a small one that focuses on small and medium-sized businesses. And if this is how you can get a hold of me. You can also find me on LinkedIn. And that's it.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your support, your guidance, and I'm looking forward to learning and growing with you through the Tech Leadership Lab. Our next panelist will be Maya. Maya is known as an AI policy researcher, ethicist, and author. So I'm going to let Maya tell you more about herself. She has some slides prepared to show you as well. I believe you're on mute right now. They wind up mute, yeah.
That always
I think.
happens, but anyhow, that's a good beginning. Now we're back
Me
to
too.
track and so again, I repeat, very glad to be here, especially with the esteemed speakers and speak on such an important topic. Um, I'll briefly speak about myself and my background. I'm an AI policy researcher and ethicist, have been in the industry over the last decade, worked in different NGOs, tech corporates, and government agencies in the US, Asia, and Europe. Um, my expertise is in AI for good, started originally in cybersecurity, moved a bit more to the world of AI driven security testing, discovered that I want to explore a bit more on how AI can actually be a positive agent in society rather than commercial only, and drove me into the world of data ethics research, and then navigating gradually between diverse inclusion tools and HR tech companies, moving to AdTech solutions. And a bit more recently, of the recent years, I would say it's my expertise in climate AI. Have my master's from Oxford, and currently I'm involved in different climate tech initiatives in India. I'm an AI consultant for climate tech startups in the country, as well as for policy think tanks, and very excited to speak about the topic and share a bit more on this issues. Briefly, I'll say that everything connected to AI for good has different roots, I would say, in terms of our own discourse that are important to trace when we are speaking of this, because AI for good was not created in a day. SDGs clearly created a theoretical framework, a more utopic vision on how we foresee the world, what we can actually solve, bringing us this admired 17 goals that we would like to see in the world and trying to push us toward collective action. Afterwards, we had COVID-19 showing us that life can sometimes be very turbulent and we do need to work together and trying to see how we can actually enhance medical diagnosis on a wider scale. That's where we actually saw some of the very interesting testing, I would say, of AI for good and how AI can be used for medical diagnosis. We've seen some of the limitations with it. We've seen more recent discussions about ESG, which is kind of an umbrella term for some of the more urging environmental, ethical, and government aspects of any phenomena, and especially of AI. And of course, conflicts and a lot of other events brought us to understanding that when we have some collective problems, we need some very strong solutions that unite all of us together into understanding how we can actually channel some of our knowledge and expertise and AI to promote some better action out there. So this is the vision. I will address a bit some of the solutions, as of course Katrina has brightly mentioned. I'll also touch a bit on some of the limitations because it's important. AI is not flawless. It has a lot of opportunities, but it also has certain aspects that we as practitioners do need to consider when we want to implement it on a broader scale. Um, a bit from the Indian perspective, which is very, very interesting. India was chairing the G20 committee and in the year before. And one of the more interesting outputs was, of course, the promotion of climate AI. We also saw this in COP28, but specifically because we are starting to see much more discussions on digital public infrastructure. And why is this important? Because we are starting to see the linkages between SDGs, the delivery of them, ESG as a concept, and understanding how we can actually promote a public infrastructure using digital tools such as AI to solve some of our biggest problems, particularly the climate crisis that is common for so many places, and still we're unable to solve so many aspects of it. Briefly, in terms of the themes, because it was also mentioned by Katrina, but we do see today very strong solutions in the private sector, in the public sector that are already tested, both in developed and developing countries, on how we can actually use AI to promote natural disaster response, climate finance, smart agriculture. We are seeing the use of ChatGPT coming rapidly into the world of of agri-tech already being used by farmers. We're seeing the optimization of energy, smart cities in general. We are actually seeing today so many different solutions that are tested. The thing is, of course, there are things that we need to enhance to make sure that they are as applicable on a broader scale. But clearly, with the expansion of ChatGPT and a lot of other events that happened, we are seeing that AI today is piloted, tested, and in some cases in quite mature stages in certain disciplines, being able to promote certain of the climate issues, but also intersecting with other social problems that we have encountered. So there is sometimes, I would say, a dual or double role of AI in solving this kind of issues because we're speaking about the environmental scope. And I'll touch a bit about the problems because we'll also have time to speak on, of course, the opportunities. AI can be magical, but the problem is that it also depends on us and it relies on our own biases, our own understanding. And this is something that does not disappear in a day. AI does not create AI, humans create AI. And that's why we're still seeing that when we are designing any climate AI solutions and we are piloting on the ground, we might see some of the loopholes that we will foresee to see when human developers will do them. And this is a natural process that we will need to test, and we are testing. And we also need to see how we're moderating the consequences of it. Clearly, biases. So when we are speaking about AI, probably the first implication that we need to think of, especially when we are piloting climate AI solutions, is understanding that there are different types of biases that exist with us humans, and AI reinforces them, and it reinforces them within the solutions. So when we are developing, for instance, chatbots for farmers, we need to make sure that marginalized communities are not harmed in the process. And this is an ambitious task, and it's something that is being tested in various solutions today. And there is a way to go. We're currently seeing improvements, but it's something that we should definitely mention when we're speaking about climate AI and broadly speaking, the digital divide. AI came as a storm into our lives, but not everyone can access it. And we are thinking about climate AI and the immense opportunities it offers across all the climate disciplines. We do need to understand that we need to make sure that every population in every area has the access, understand what AI is, hopefully, and is able to benefit from it, and understanding also the risks in a way. And as mentioned, of course, before in the presentation, the immense contributions do not mean that there are not harms. And the harms can also be by the fact that we are still unable to moderate the energy consumption of AI. There is a lot of work being done on this subject. We can speak a bit more about the wonderful work of Google and DeepMind on trying to moderate a bit the energy level consumptions. But there is still a way to go. There are estimations of, again, when we're speaking about public AI, the energy levels at certain years predict that it might reach the level of actually the energy consumption of full states. And this is something that we do need to prevent because we cannot do good on the one hand, but then lead to complete harm on the other. So just to give kind of food for thought, we'll touch it a bit more afterwards. We need to discuss a bit about the sustainable requirements for climate AI. We do need to consider that we do have a lot of opportunities. We need to think of the debiasing tools. We need to see how we are moderating the digital divide. And of course, thinking of capacity building, how we actually trust AI to do such an important task as mitigating one of the most urgent crises that we're seeing in human society, which is the urgent climate crisis across different continents and cultures. And of course, trying to see how we're promoting AI and climate literacy. And that's for me for now, and we'll be glad, of course, to continue afterwards with a question and listening to additional insights.
Wow, that was amazing. And I love what you're speaking about, especially talking about how AI needs to be equitable. There's no divide about it. We can't just the technology divide is so huge to begin with, even if we're talking about the basic needs that we had prior, basic needs now in the US, around the world, it's now internet, it's high speed access. And then we're talking about adding AI into the situation. When you think about it, there's already I'd say over 22 million children within the US that don't even have access to high-speed internet. And then if you're adding that into AI with technology, I mean, wow, it just really it really expands the digital divide. So thank you so much for touching on that about making sure that the products and that we're coming up with, it's great to come up with a solution, but let's make sure that we can find ways to get this into the hands of our global population. Find those subsidies that are out there to make sure that we can get them what they need, and not to harm the marginalized communities as well, while creating some benefits from other communities out there that may be really tech rich. But thank you again. So now we're going to go over to our esteemed panelist, Mark Minovich. This is really cool because I found out that he was appointed to the UN Committee for Consulting with UNDSA. He is actually appointed as an AI expert to the United Nations. That is so cool. It's so glad to have you here with us today, Mark. And I think we have a video to play for you right now, and then we'll go into your slides.
When it comes to AI and the digital revolution, Mark Minovich is in a class all his own.
We now have to create impact with AI.
A foremost authority on the digital transformation of the world and its impact on humans. His book, Our Planet Powered by AI, shares actionable ways everyone can incorporate AI into their business and private life.
Let's solve the world's greatest
In the
problems
race toward
together.
digital dominance, he's called a wizard mind. But it's his heart and deep concern for humanity that distinguishes him from the rest. He's all about humanizing the tech revolution, making sure AI enhances the human experience, not replace it. Mark Minovich, Executive Chairman and co-founder of Going Global Ventures and Digital Pioneers Network. He is today's LA Story. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very cool edition.
Great. Hello, and thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm speaking to you now from America's space capital, Houston. Not my hometown. My hometown is in New York, but I happen to be here. I just landed hours ago from Dallas, where I was delivering a major presentation to some of the amazing visionaries, entrepreneurs, and family offices in Dallas area, and I'm going to be spending a couple of days here in Houston as well. Indeed, we are in such an incredible age and era right now today. It is really, to be frank with you, it's a revolution. It's something that we have never seen before. It's where the hope of people across the world is intersecting with innovation. And the new dawn of the era is upon us. This is the algorithmic era. As an investor myself, who invested in dozens of companies across the world and worked some of the biggest VCs, and as Keith pointed out, involved with the United Nations, chairing a company that is doing some amazing things in artificial intelligence and adoption of AI and governance across the United States and across the world with different governments and different institutions and enterprises. I see the world from 360 degrees, and I am very privileged and very humbled to be able to be involved in so many things, from investments to strategy to adoption to dealing with policy and dealing with innovation. And so I'm excited that today that we could talk about really this issue that really matters to us more than anything else. The planet, this beautiful planet, which we are neglecting as human beings. We're going to have to solve this issue of climate. We have to solve the issue of biodiversity. We have to solve the issue with wildlife. And we have to make sure that our planet, we are just people occupying the planet, that we're going to have an experience, we're going to have this life journey that will continue for the next generation. Otherwise, it will not last until the next generation. And so we are here to shape, define, and lead a future where we are tackling really responsible elements of responsible climate, responsible AI, and we're going to have to focus on shared values and aspirations. If I could have my first slide, please. We are in incredible time, as I mentioned. This AI revolution is in our hands. The people who are here today, esteemed colleagues and distinguished experts, but we have to do a lot more. Our current framework, and many of you have pointed out already, is not working. It's not adequate. And so we got to do a lot more to deal for humanity and Earth. And we believe, all of us, that AI really represents this promise towards this vision, but it has to be done ethically. It has to be done responsible, and then potential is boundless. And I will tell you something, something else. I think we cannot stop AI. I see all this talk by governments, let's stop, let's pause, let's do anything. It is inescapable. We're not going to stop it. AI is going to be the partner. It's going to be an essential partner for our humanity for foreseeable future. It is going to have immense opportunities for organizations and enterprises and governments, but it does cast dark shadows. And it does cast dark shadows with existential concerns that we must grapple with. And this is why I said I got to put a book out that has a unifying blueprint, which we'll talk about, to tackle the society's greatest risks and to define a new future story, to uplift the lives, to secure the rights, to preserve our planet for generations that are not born yet. And we got to anchor it in values of sustainability, of partnerships, and social justice and human rights. So next slide, please. Next slide, please. We have to focus on addressing certain needs in 2022 and for beyond. We got to focus on global challenges. Many of you have pointed this out. Resource depletion, biodiversity. We got to promote more sustainability and sustainable development by optimizing resources and reducing environmental impact. Ethics and human-centric approach. We have a couple of ethicists on the call. We got to continue to advocate for the development and application of AI with responsible ethical consideration. But we also have to advocate that they align with SDGs. We got to make sure AI is in the hands of the people that need it the most, in farming communities in India and Bangladesh, Indonesia, and other places. They need it more than anyone else in Global South, and we don't have funds for this. We talk too much and we do very little. We have to focus a lot on economic development and creating those opportunities. There's urgency right now, and there's urgency of implementing this technological advancement we call AI. And obviously, all of this is leading to this visionary blueprint, which I hope we'll spend the time today talking about, which I have produced and based on my research over many years and figuring out what is the balance with technology, society, and environment. Next slide, please. We got to, and very quickly, because we're going to go over this in discussions today, we got to talk about, no question, the themes that I covered in the book. We're going to cover all of this. Ethical AI, guidelines, whether there's fairness, transparency, accountability, very important for areas like climate. How do we apply AI judiciously? What are the cons and the pros? What are the corrective measures that we need to do for algorithms? How do we identify issues early on? So situations like Gemini would not happen. And we got to focus on sustainable models. What are those sustainable models? How do we get to those sustainable models? What kind of data analysis do we have to do? When we create those models that guide threats, whether it's pandemics or hurricanes, how do we do this effectively? What kind of machine learning is going to work critically for climate resilience planning? What kind of optimization of renewable integration, transportation, and infrastructure decarbonization do we need to bring in? How do we deal with smart cities and optimized living? How do we make sure that they are resilient, where people and planet thrive together? And then how do we bring in multi-stakeholder partnerships, like with the United Nations, the World Bank, and other organizations, the World Economic Forum? How do we make sure they all work together? How do we find this cooperation, and how do we forge effective policies of the future? Next slide, please. I will tell you, all of this is great, but the reality which we are dealing with today is dark. We celebrate all of those things with AI, but we must grapple with this truth. Only a fraction, 12% of sustainable development goals are on track to be achieved by 2030. Why is that? This gap is giving us an indication disparities are huge. The gaps are even getting wider. Developed nations, the medium and low income countries, they're all strained by resource scarcity. They're all strained by supply chain disruptions. They're all strained by lack of comprehensive collaboration. And then now we have generative AI. It's rising all over the place. It's every day is on the news. Right now, Mustafa Suleyman has been appointed by President Satya at Microsoft. He's talking about, generative AI and how all of those big tech companies are going to get involved and what they're going to do for the world. But here we are, the power of generative AI. It's not just algorithms. It's not just adoption, but it's also how it's set up. It's set up in a very democratized fashion. And we got to keep it democratized. We don't want big tech companies controlling our future. We want this democratization to take place, but we have to make sure there are those endless opportunities in social impact. And let me tell you something else. When people talk about, wow, all of this technology, all of this AI, we have to really understand how AI works. To be honest with you, I spent many years in artificial intelligence and technology in general, over 28 years in my profession. 10% is actually generative AI, or AI is algorithms. 20% is infrastructure and technology to support this. And the rest of the 70% is our collective intent, our collaboration and our culture and our process. So the bottom line is, why planetary AI? Because it's going to awaken our conscious. It's not just human-centric AI, it's planetary AI. We have to heal the divides. We have to forge cooperation with a hopeful story for our humankind on Earth. And time to do it is now, in 2024. We can't wait any longer. AI represents an immense promise to bring this global cooperation together. Not only tools, not only deployment, not only guides. And we got to have courageous leadership to do this. Where is the leadership that exists in this world? We're divided with strifes and wars and conflicts. But we need to have courageous leadership. And this courageous leadership must be here in the area like climate and planetary AI. And I'm making this urgent appeal. In order to have this livable world and our future, we need leadership. So I think with all the things that I mentioned, planetary AI is going to be the key. As many of my colleagues mentioned, it will establish early warning systems. We need to have those early warning systems because the volumes of data, like weather readings and patterns, we're all over the place. It's unbelievable what's happening, but we don't have a clarity. Who to trust? Who do we trust? This was the topic of the World Economic Forum. How do we trust technology? Do we trust weather stations? Do we trust the government? Who do we trust? The AI models are flooded right now. And how do we use those models to advance, to protect families, to make sure they don't have those water streams that are streaming through villages and cities, to protect them from hurricanes and other deadly strikes? Satellite crop analysis has to be in place already. Satellite crop analysis. This is 2024. And agriculture and people in farming need this. They need early warning systems so they could intervene. AI also gives us transformative insights, as I mentioned in my book. AI crunches significant amount of data, petabytes of data, terabytes of data. But we need to go beyond that. And we need to figure out how this data really is going to help us with certain things like clinical trials, with particle collisions. We have to figure out correlations. What does that mean? What are the correlations? What are those means to have scientific and medical breakthroughs? We got to figure out how all of those transformative analysis are going to help us in mobility pattern analysis and figuring out the future of zoning, the future of transportation, the future of house planning. AI has to have predictive models and scenarios now, today, everywhere in all the businesses. And I only see less than 2 or 3% to outbreaks, natural disasters. Those models are critically important. Next slide, please. Already at the United Nations, I'm very proud to be a co-chair with my colleague and good friend, Damian out of France, out of Startup Insight, together with the United Nations, with UNESCO and UNDP and UN Secretariat, we created something called AI for the Planet Alliance. And we have concluded several sessions at the United Nations. We have identified amazing companies already. Those companies that have identified companies like AquaConnect, unbelievable company focusing on full stack aquaculture platform through AI and satellite remote sensing. We have uncovered, and by the way, they're on the news right now. If you haven't checked out, check them out. Fast companies, top company right now this week, Husk Power Systems. Husk cares about Global South. They're using AI to accelerate access to most reliable and affordable energy sources, driving economic growth and better living standards for the 10% of the world that are still living in energy poverty. List goes on and on and on. I wouldn't bore you. We're going to get to that. But the bottom line is we have done experiments with the United Nations identifying some of the most amazing companies in the climate and planetary AI, and it can happen, which is going to bring the consortium of corporates, NGOs, foundations, and governments together to make it happen. Next slide, climate. Climate is this, next slide, please. Climate is really something that we are talking about. And this is the main focus of today. Mother Earth is calling us, and AI has to respond and fight this war against climate change. You know, we are empowering predictive climate modeling. We are using targeted evidence-based policies right now. We're locating inefficiencies in transport, infrastructure, and buildings, and power and heavy industries. So we will talk in more detail, but we got to focus on greenhouse gas emission controls, energy management, accurate forecasting. We got to make sure that our environment equals to health. There's no such thing as good health and bad environment, or bad environment and good health. All of this is combined together. Conservation and biodiversity. And I will tell you, Google, again, even though they had this issue with Gemini, Google's DeepMind is still a leading example for me as a use case of optimized energy consumption and maximizing efficiency of renewable energy. Google's DeepMind, by the way, has reduced use for cooling in data centers by 40% through AI-powered optimization. This is amazing stuff. Other companies that we're going to talk today about, something like Prospera Technologies, which uses their computer vision to do diagnostics on nutrients and crop issues. That's also critically important. Another company I want to bring to your attention, Blue Sky Analytics. This is a digital twin. We talk about digital twin of a city, digital twin of a country. Digital twins are powered by AI. As you know, it's a virtual replica of our planet, of our world. And by the way, they're using technology called space-time, Blue Sky Analytics. And they are creating digital twin of Earth using proprietary environmental data. This is critically important, and important with the SDG goals as well. So bottom line is we have a lot to do on the climate space, and when it comes to energy, and it comes to the potential. Next slide, please. We got to move forward. AI, and I'm few more slides and I'll be done. AI has, as I mentioned, every potential. It's going to touch upon every sector, from energy to farming. When it comes to energy, AI is already enabling smart grids. As you know, AI is already doing sophisticated stuff in simulations and models spanning atmosphere, soil, emission sources. It is already in manufacturing supply chain if we use it properly, and in agriculture. We'll talk more in detail. From a conservation efforts, we got to use more satellite imagery, sensor data, and wildlife tracking as well. Next slide. We got to now scale, as I mentioned in the book. Next slide, please. Scaling AI for sustainability. In order to accomplish what we are discussing today, what I'm just preaching to you right now, I'm advocating, I'm very passionate about this space because every single thing on artificial intelligence today goes in optimization. They forget the word sustainability. They forget the word human-centric. They forget about our planet, and they talk about making profits, and they talk about greed. This is enterprises and corporates today. No good at all. We have to figure out, how do we scale AI for sustainability? It's not just efficiency alone. It's not just margins, and it's not just headcount reductions in companies. Sustainability is the key. And we got to make sure governments, together with major academic institutions, the work that GPI is doing, the work that CPI, the work that World Economic Forum, the United Nations, the advisory, high body advisory group that I'm very humbled to work with is trying to focus on. We got to figure out how all of them could work together, how businesses could actually start embedding sustainability and not only efficiency through their operations from ground up, not just on greenwashing, but ground up. How could we actually use tracking supply chains using blockchains? How could we do this to have interventions that are beyond just buzzing and norms? How do we explore those partnerships? How do we focus, as many of you mentioned, storage emissions right now is a big issue. How do we deal with that with cloud providers? And all of that becomes really important. NGOs, so many NGOs in the market. I happen to be the chairman of the executive committee of AI for Good Foundation. And all those NGOs have to work together to make sure that they have a good grounding on environment and have a complete ecosystem mapping to work together with governments as well as academia, not only fundamental research, but applied research on benchmarks and everything else. Next slide, please. Call to action. And we're going to talk about this. Call to action must be on the policy side. We are underinvested right now in sustainability research at all levels. Fundamental material science, to ecosystem modeling, government funding across, not only in the United States, in Europe. It's great that we have an AI Act protecting us from harm, but where is the funding that will produce exponential progress? We got to raise public awareness. That is vital. Public awareness is not raised. All the conferences are done for the people that are in the circle. They already know the stuff. We are converted. We need to focus on how to raise it for media campaigns, for general public across the world, not only in the West, but global South. We got to have steering committees set up to identify those priorities and work with academics and governments and media institutions. The challenges are enormous. Now we need those major partnerships to get things done. Not only major, they have to be interdisciplinary. They got to focus on sustainability. They got to focus on talent. They got to focus on our youth, our next generation, setting up research labs across the world, centers of excellence, focusing on AI and sustainability, focusing on giving them game-changing innovations. We need to fund them. And I like to offer this as a plea. We have an opportunity now, ladies and gentlemen, indeed a major responsibility. We have to shape the narrative of AI, inclusive, ethical, and beneficial for all. We have to integrate AI in our global economy and global companies. Saying that we are focusing on efficiency is not good enough. We have to focus on everything that we discussed today. And we prioritize fairness. We prioritize transparency. We prioritize accountability. We cannot kill innovation. We have to allow startups to innovate. We have to put checks and balances on the big tech today, and we got to actively involve every stakeholder. It is a story, AI. It is a story of evolution. It is a story of aspiration. It's a story of regular people rising up and saying, we could do certain things to make sure that we are relevant in this digital world. But we got to do it with global partners. We have to make sure that we learn from our experiences, from research, from innovation, from NGOs. We share our insights like we're doing today. We got to really craft this harmonious future. It's going to come. We're standing on the dome, as you all know. The reason we're doing it, it's a transformative era. I call everyone that is listening today, do not just listen to us. Go do it. This is the time to adopt AI, focusing on the spirit of our planet, on the planetary purposes. Together, we will be united. It's a united world. It's a global community. We cannot leave it to legacy. We cannot leave it to corporate executives. We cannot leave it to technologists. We have to proactively do it. This is not just technology. This is a global change. This is immense. This is imperative. This is going to focus on humanity going on. This is probably the greatest thing that we could develop and push for generations to come. But we got to do it right. We got to orchestrate it right. We got to orchestrate where AI is really working hand in hand with our human potential, humanity, who we are. We orchestrate this with business, with academia and research, and we create a new sculpture for this world. The new sculpture has to be created. Maybe together with the United Nations, with all the great institutions, we could do it. I think that we can, and I think this is an opportunity that is standing in front of us. Finally, the future that we all want is extraordinary. And I urge you to recognize opportunities before us. Recognize them by writing about it, by talking about it, by creating companies. We are the architects of this revolution. We are the trailblazers of this new era. Let no one tell us that it's difficult or complicated. We have a major responsibility. We're gonna do it with courage, with wisdom, and commitment. We're gonna embark on this journey together, and we're gonna lead this charge on the sustainable AI transformation, leaving the lasting impact. The time to seize the moment is now. We're not going to be passive anymore. We're going to be script writers like in Hollywood. We're going to drive and develop this AI saga, and we're going to challenge everyone. We're going to ponder, and we're going to innovate. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark.
I'm looking forward to having this vibrant discussion. Make things happen.
Mark, I love your energy. Oh my God. I'm so thankful for you being here with us today. It's also among every one of our panelists that we have and our participants, but your energy is what we need. We need to make sure that we're going to be present, that's going to be authentic, and that we're truly showing up. I love the fact that you said, less talk, more action. And that's all that TLL is about. It's really about getting out there and making sure that everyone knows that the time is now. We cannot wait any longer. So thank you so much again for being present with us. And I am really looking forward to learning more about you, your methodology, and just seeing how we can develop during the Tech Leadership Labs Global Virtual Summit. Thank you so much. Now we're going to go over to Francis Dion. Francis, thank you so much for being here with us today. And do you have your slide deck ready to go? You are on mute, I believe.
Yes, I am unmuted now.
Okay, perfect.
All right, so let's not present that just yet. Can I not present that? Anyway, you can do it. Thank you. Wow, how do I follow up after such esteemed panelist? It's pretty humbling. I will follow up with the shortest presentation ever by just telling you that AI will solve none of our challenges. So that's it. I'm sorry, but that's the truth. AI will not solve any of our climate or any of the other challenges. That's it. Thank you. Bye-bye. No, more seriously, this is true that AI will not solve our problems. It is not true that this will be the shortest presentation, I guess. Just a word about myself. I've been a tech entrepreneur all my life. I've been involved in 25 startups so far. And I've done my first stint at programming a computer to think like a human, so AI, over more than 40 years ago. So that's been a while. Those of you who remember the film War Games, that's what got me inspired in the topic and other things. What am I saying that AI will not solve the problem? Like, there are two reasons why AI will not solve any of our problems. First, because it cannot, and second, it's because it should not. And these are two very, very important points. So Michael Littman from Brown University said last week at South by Southwest that thinking that AI can tackle such complex issues as the climate problems that we have and magically come up with the right solution, well, that is just magic thinking. It won't happen now, likely not in any foreseeable future, and certainly not in this decade. Anyone familiar with the AI elephant in the room problem? Can we bring the presentation back, please? Just 2 slides. Don't worry. So the elephant in the room problem is something that AI scientists have known about forever. And actually, I think it was Marvin Minsky 40 years ago that tasked an intern to solve it during a summer assignment, thinking that it'll be all resolved when he came back from his summer vacation. Clearly, it wasn't the case. The elephant in the room problem is that AI is not smart. AI is extremely powerful, but it does not understand. And the elephant in the room is, and you can try it yourself, ask ChatGPT or any other AI to give you a room without you will have one and possibly multiple elephants in the room. The same thing that when law enforcement officers are trying to not tell suspects to not run, don't run. Instead, they say stop, because the human brain does not understand the negative part and just starts running. And it's the same with AI. The AI has the same problem, cannot deal with negative prompts. So what I asked this morning, just before this panel, actually, just to make sure that it was still the case, I asked ChatGPT, give me an image of a room with no windows and no doors. And can we go to the next slide, please? And this is the image that I got. So here is the image of a room with no doors or other objects. Right. So this is the level of understanding that we can expect from AI. Right? Earlier today, our JB Fournier, our sustainability expert at STS, asked ChatGPT for a breakdown of the carbon impact of various sources of energy for a manufacturing company, and the answer was pretty good. And what does that mean, pretty good? Well, probably something like 1 in every 5 numbers that the AI provided was wrong, like just plain like bad math, basically, right? And so if you think that drawing a room with no doors is a challenge, think about, how do I make sure that I responsibly reduce the carbon footprint of my global operation that span multiple countries, jurisdictions, communities, employees, suppliers? I mean, that it's an order of magnitude more complex. And then if you think that, let's say, 1 in 5 of the data points that you use to make a decision is likely to be false, I mean, your chances of making a decision that requires 20 data points that will work are like 0. Like, do the math. It's basically, it just doesn't work. So the AI cannot make decisions. Secondly, the AI should not make decisions, and that's a very different problem, but it's also an important one. Imagine that a company had a brilliant leader that could make all the decisions, all the right decisions, all the time, and will just say to his employee, don't think, don't give me your opinion, just follow my thought, right? And just follow my lead. I mean, this leader will basically find himself very isolated, and this company will most likely falter, right? This is not how humans work. A solution that comes from elsewhere, like I worked in process improvement, and I talked to a finance company and told them that we had consulted the employees of another bank, and they had come up with good ideas on how to improve the process. And then we could do the same for that other one. And that other bank said, oh, I don't need to go through that process. I will just take the solution that the other teams came up and apply that to my context, and it will be great. And it's missing the point. People need to be engaged. People need to be part of the solution. They cannot be just take it for granted and just be dumped solution that come from a leader, an AI, a machine, an obscure black box process. People need to be, they have agency. They need to keep that agency, and we need to support them in that. So this is basically, like to Meyer's point earlier, our problems are human problems, and humans need to be the ones at the center and in control of the solutions that we choose and implement. And this is why I dedicated myself now to using technology, including AI, to help humans make the best possible decisions, especially the decisions that have the biggest impact on the environment, the social fabric of our society, and the governance of our organization. And it turns out that AI is actually great at that, in a supporting role for the real stars, which are our people. And this is what AI should be used for, is to enable people. And how do we do that? Well, it's not just human in the loops, if you've heard that, but it's really human in control. So as Mark said, we talk much and we act too little. AI should not be an excuse to surrender our responsibilities and to act even less. What we need is courageous leadership. And also, I like when Mark mentioned that, like who do we trust? That's a very important question, But another question, and maybe a deeper question, is how do we trust? And how do we know what are the options to consider? How do we get better at spotting biases and false assumptions, and how we make decisions, and who to trust, on what to do, and how to go about doing it? So really, this is where I think that AI can be a great tool to provide more options than maybe you would have been considering otherwise, to help us synthesize, make sense of the complexity of the world, but then in the end, allow us to make the decisions, make the call, and take the action that we collectively need to make. Maybe that was the shortest presentation after all, but yeah, that's what I had to say.
Amazing work, Francis. Wow, that's all I could say is I am so impressed by our panel today. This has been amazing. I love the energy, and I love the comedy too. And I almost was going to be like, hey, can I interject? Because the name of the AI company that I'm a founder for is called Resilient Elephant, but it was based upon a different theory that there's always that elephant in the room. And that elephant is so resilient because no one ever deals with the elephant. So I love the fact that you said that, and just great examples. Great.
Good news, AI won't get rid of the elephant.
They'll never get rid of the elephant. Yay! Okay, perfect. So now we're going to go over to we're going to have a break after this, as we had mentioned, and then we're going to come back into a great discussion where we have some questions here between the panels. So we're going to have a nice roundtable, and then we're going to have an opportunity for you, the participants, to ask our esteemed guests some questions that you're just really dying to know the answers for. So thank you so much for being here with us today. And now we're going to move over to our break. Thank you so much.
Good water. Hey there, I'm Andrew Chang. You're watching About That. Why did I just chug this bottle of water? I'm glad you asked. It's to illustrate roughly how much ChatGPT apparently drinks each time you have a conversation with it. That, according to one preprint study, is the hidden cost of AI. All the water needed to power and cool the kind of supercomputers needed to make it work on a large scale. And if you figure there are like 100 million active ChatGPT users, and each user has, let's say, one conversation, we could be talking about 100 million of these. It really starts to add up. But here's the thing. The exact amount of water consumed may not be as important as just realizing that water is consumed at all. Like, I don't know about you, but I typically think of the environmental impact of technology in terms of greenhouse gas emissions or electricity use, certainly less often in terms of clean, drinkable water. But that is exactly what technology needs. And as AI grows, so does its thirst for one of our planet's most precious resources.
Most people do not realize that a computer is basically a radiator. Every single unit of electricity that's consumed by a computer is transformed into heat. So the 100 megawatt of electricity that we're consuming is producing 100 megawatt of heat.
Microsoft says its latest supercomputer, built to train artificial intelligence, is made up of 10,000 advanced graphics cards, more than 285,000 CPU cores. And each of these CPUs running at full load might get as hot as 100 degrees Celsius. I mean, you could boil water in that environment, right? But running that hot for too long will damage your equipment. So water is actually one of the most efficient ways to keep a room and a supercomputer cool.
On September 11th, 2023, weather predictions in the northeast of the U.S. sounded like this.
All eyes are on Hurricane Lee.
The storm has strengthened back to a Category 3.
We're expecting it to make a northward turn over the next few days.
By September 16th, after being downgraded, Storm Lee made landfall in Nova Scotia, Canada, flooding roads, downing trees, and cutting out power for tens of thousands of people along the East Coast. At least 5 days before Hurricane Lee struck land, weather forecasts had roughly predicted its trajectory. But another forecast beat them. 3 days before weather stations, an AI model created by Google predicted the cyclone's path. The AI revolution has reached meteorology, and it's at a time when we are responding to extreme weather more than ever. We're about to find out if it'll help us prepare by bringing the future into clear view. AI models learned how weather moves, not through applying trillions of physics equations to the Earth's atmosphere, but by being trained on Era 5's enormous historical data set. Researchers gave the models a snapshot of weather conditions, asked them to make a prediction, and then scored them on how closely that prediction matched what really happened. After a while, the models eventually got really good at this. By 2023, the tech companies Google, Huawei, and NVIDIA had developed models that rivaled traditional forecasting on variables like surface temperature, humidity, and wind speed, and on some extreme weather events like the paths of tropical cyclones, atmospheric rivers, and extreme temperatures.
When it comes to a sustainable future, artificial intelligence can help us do 3 critical things. First, it can help us understand climate change and its effects on Earth's ecosystems. Second, it can help us optimize current systems and infrastructure because we can't just start over from scratch today. And third, it can help us accelerate the breakthrough science we need, such as fusion as a carbon-free energy source.
After many, many years later, maybe when we look back, we recognize that, oh, that's the moment when everything changed.
In 5 years, AI is going to literally be in everything we do. As humans, we have to, first of all, understand that this is going to happen.
Many technologists try to solve human problems using technology when actually what we need are human solutions.
The deeper question is, what does it mean to be human? What are the things I'll still be proud of?
I find this moment extremely profound because it really forces us as a humanity to think through exactly what consciousness is, what makes humans human.
Es geht hier richtig viel.
There's a whole lot at stake here. Careers, unbelievable amounts of money, and who gets to shape the future. This is a watershed moment for Europe, the last roll of the dice. If Europe wants to decide how to use technology in accordance with European values, then it has to be able to build that technology itself.
Thomas Wolfe co-founded Hugging Face, a major open-source AI platform. He wants to stop one of the most powerful technologies in human history from ending up in the hands of a few corporations.
What we need is a multitude of players, not just one that owns AI. We don't want a future where such a fundamental technology is in the hands of a single company. There are plenty of films where that's the mark of a dystopia. One company that controls everything.
Han Shao is a Chinese AI entrepreneur. He wants his company, Gina AI, to be successful on both the Western and Chinese markets. So what role do Chinese AI companies play in this global race? And how is the Chinese Communist Party using them to achieve its political goals?
ChatGPT or GPT-4, it basically serves as a brain. And this brain cannot be made in US, right? So this is some worry that the Chinese government has.
It is absolutely clear that at the highest levels of leadership in the United States and in China, artificial intelligence is viewed as foundational to the future of economic and military power.
I think we've made a mistake when my Swedish countryman Carl von Linnaeus branded our species as Homo sapiens, because sapiens means the thinking Homo, the smart one, right? We're not going to be the smartest anymore. Maybe we should rebrand ourselves to Homo sentiens, the feeling human. We can feel curiosity, meaning, purpose, love. That is what really makes us unique. We should ask, how can we keep control over the machines so that we can use them as tools to build a world where we can really have human flourishing with positive experiences. When I founded the Future Life Institute, it was quite taboo to even talk about AI safety at all, because that would imply that it wasn't totally safe. And a lot of AI researchers thought that it would be bad for funding and that only weird people worried about this.
My worst fears are that we, the field, the technology, the industry, cause significant harm to the world. I think if this technology goes wrong, it can go quite wrong. And we want to be vocal about that. We want to work with the government.
I think he was serious about that. I think that's kind of, so we were talking about these existential risks, and I also believe there are existential risks. There are also a whole spectrum of other risks, and I know of some. I talked to him a couple of times about this. He very much recognizes them as well.
On the one hand, of course, these warnings about the major power of this new technology also amplify the significance of the products that these people are building. So it could also have an indirect marketing effect, right? Like, look at the incredible things that we're building. But also, let's make sure that nothing goes wrong. And for that, they look to the politicians. The net effect of that could be that if, heaven forbid, something goes wrong, they could say, well, we warned you, but the politicians did not act, or they did not act in time.
So I'm looking at a paper here entitled Large Language Models Trained on Media Diets Can Predict Public Opinion. This is just posted about a month ago. This work was done at MIT and then also at Google. The conclusion is that large language models can indeed predict public opinion. I want to think about this in the context of elections. Should we be concerned about large language models that can predict survey opinion and then can help organizations, entities fine-tune strategies to elicit behaviors from voters? Should we be worried about this for our elections?
Yeah. Thank you, Senator Hawley, for the question. It's one of my areas of greatest concern. The more general ability of these models to manipulate, to persuade, to provide sort of one-on-one, interactive disinformation. I'm nervous about it. I think people are able to adapt quite quickly. When Photoshop came onto the scene a long time ago, for a while, people were really quite fooled by Photoshopped images, and then pretty quickly developed an understanding that images might be Photoshopped. This will be like that, but on steroids. And the interactivity, the ability to really predict humans well, as you talked about, I think is going to require a combination of companies doing the right thing, regulation, and public education.
And we are back. I almost did it too as well, but I had my mic up. But I'm so thankful to be back here with everyone. That is an amazing video. I love the music. I was just ready to start dancing to it. This is pretty cool. Whoever did that, congrats to them. Great work, tech leadership team. Amazing. So we're going to get into some questions first that we had already here for our roundtable. Then we're going to go over to our questions and answers from the audience. So we're going to start out with our first question here that we have, which is, how can AI technologies be applied to develop and scale solutions that enhance climate resilience and mitigation efforts? Could you share examples of AI applications that have shown promising results in these areas? And for this one, we are going to actually start out with Maya.
Thank you so much for the question. So as briefly said before, there are plenty of use cases that we can see today for climate AI. The interesting part will be that the answer changes across places. Different countries have different needs and different categories of, and also definitions of what climate problems are and how we can actually solve them. I think that it will be interesting because we have such, I would say, a diverse group of speakers. I'll try to speak a bit from the Indian perspective. So here specifically, I'm dealing with everything connected to climate AI and waste management, and also a bit more in agri-tech. So I think that one of the more interesting categories is everything connected to the use of chatbots for farmers. This is a very promising and almost, I would say, pretty recent use case of AI in agriculture. And the interesting part of it is that we're already seeing a pretty big number of chatbots that are open source, meaning many can develop new models and kind of have the access to either the API and generally the basics of how the tool can look like. And it serves several purposes. The thing here, we were discussing a bit more about a use case that is able to, first of all, enhance agri-tech, and we can teach farmers how to better use weather intelligence to promote more successful crops and hills generally. We can help them be better adapted to natural hazards and extreme weather events. So this is on the one hand, so we can kind of teach it through the platform. And then there is a different angle, which is very, very interesting. It's everything connected to climate literacy and AI literacy through the platform. So specifically in this category of agri-tech and specifically with the use of chatbots, we're seeing quite often, I would say, in South Asia and also in other places, we are seeing how the use of AI enables us to use previous data sets of agricultural data, give some smart recommendation for the farmers on how to better manage their work, making sure that they're, of course, as has been spoken before, they are in the loop, they are the ones controlling, but in the same time, they're able to amplify the results. And the interesting part of it, that in the same time, they're also able to, first of all, get more exposed to the digital sphere through learning what AI is, what it can do, and in the same time, also understanding a bit more the macro implications of climate AI. India specifically has been pushing a lot for everything connected to AI in agriculture. There is a pretty strong farming crisis resulting from the climate crisis broadly, but specifically because of the more extreme weather conditions, some of the more socioeconomic barriers of certain groups. The chatbot enables farmers to maximize the profits, understand previous agricultural patterns and data that might be relevant, and have more informed decision making. And I think that this use case is very interesting, and there are plenty of others that I'm sure the other panelists will elaborate upon. And I wanted to focus on this because when we are thinking of chatbots, we are first of all enabling the use of generative AI, the ability to create conversational AI, and making sure that farmers are also part of the revolution, understanding what needs to be done, understanding what the climate crisis look like and what they can do. And in the same time, they're also able to understand how to use different tools. And the impact here is dual. So there are, of course, some implications, but and some data errors and biases as in every AI tool, but Currently, what we're seeing in the region has been incredibly interesting. We are seeing very promising adoption rates in certain regions. But this is, of course, one core case study that is very interesting. There are a few others that I would say are connected much more to smart operations in climate. Everything connected to the ability to support the human role in the mitigation of the climate crisis. We can speak about waste management, recycling, the ability to separate between materials. These are all things that can be automated because we do have previous data sets. We cannot exactly foresee the future, but we can give smart recommendations on how we can do some of the more climate practices in a more sustainable manner, in a more cost-effective manner. We also mentioned before about energy conservation, a bit more of the work of Google and DeepMind. It has been quite promising and repeated, I think, in the opening remarks of all of us, because it was quite a monumental example, I believe, for everything connected to the ability to actually reduce the level of energy consumptions. But when we are thinking broadly of most of these use cases, and this is, I think, an important remark to be said, these are all extensions of us as humans and not replacements. This can empower our work in most of the climate disciplines and in most of the climate problems. In some cases, there is, of course, the fear that the usage of climate AI can actually replace the worker. But in the current structure, in the current, I would say, settings in most places, we are seeing the empowerment of humans using it. There are some barriers in terms of literacy, but and costs, of course. But when we are thinking of the use cases and the ability to actually harness climate AI for good and making sure that all the groups are part of the discussion, the examples of ChatGPT, conversational AI, the ability to automate weather data and intelligence and making sure that we're able to adapt a bit more with natural hazards, have some concrete evidence. We are seeing fantastic solutions and pretty good adoption. It doesn't mean that the ethical and social discussion should not exist. There are risks, there are limitations. The thing is, climate crisis is here, and we definitely need a stronger reaction of us that is able to outweigh a bit our current capacity that is limited. AI can be this kind of human extension, the assistant, the virtual assistant that we need to make sure that we are able to meet some of our targets. And when we are speaking a bit more about ChatGPT in the world of agriculture, water management, waste management, thinking of smart operations as a whole, the existing solutions today definitely show a quite promising future of how climate AI should look like. Of course, under the understanding that the limitations are here, and the limitations in many cases also result because AI is still dependent on us. There is, I think, a very interesting ethical discussion of what might happen when machines create machines, but there is still a long time for that. In the meantime, definitely when we are speaking about how AI can be incorporated in climate, we should think on the direction of human machine teaming. We need to see how currently most of the use cases can amplify the climate worker, not replace it necessarily, and still understand, of course, the consequences of it. So this is a glimpse to some of the use cases that, again, are a bit more common to my current work, and I look forward to listening to the other use cases from the panelists.
Thank you so much, Maya. And I was loving what you were mentioning about, like, you know, even the water usage with farming. And when I was making something similar to that, but then I was having some conversation with fertilizer salesmen and other people, and they're like, but what about the soil? And then we started digging deeper into that, and then looking at the climate changes and how to plant which, you know, the cycle of crops that you're actually going to plant one after another to make sure it's actually going to work well within the season and how close it is to water. So thank you so much again for adding that. So we're now going to go over to Francis. If you could continue with any other additional insight that you may have on this question, or actually, if you feel like I think Maya did an amazing job on it, we could actually go to question number 2. For question number 2, we have, in the context of environmental protection, what policies can be established to ensure ethical development and deployment of AI technologies? How do we balance innovation with ethical considerations?
Well, thank you. I'll just like expand a little bit on the great job that Maya has done, and it will lead into the second question. So I think they'll be perfect. So first up, I love the story about empowering the farmers and giving them access to the tool themselves, and everything that Maya said, it was right on point. I think there are 4 aspects that we need to consider in order to scale responsibly any solutions, really. The first thing is that AI is great at providing optionality, and an example of that is what we did with the city of Los Angeles, the conference organized by Craig Apodaca last fall, where basically they have the intention of directing 100% of their waste from landfill. And one of the things that we did through AI is that we sift through hundreds of case studies that came from the C40 and other sources of initiative at the city level to deal with waste management. And some of the ideas that came out of that were like just mind-blowing to me, things I would never have thought about. So optionality is the first thing. So provide more options than what you might have considered without AI. The second element is conversion. So when you have too many options, it's like having not enough, right? So it becomes overwhelming. So how can you boil it down? Some ideas are overlapping. Some ideas might not be relevant. So you can use AI to limit your set of options that you look at. So augment it first and then limit it so that you get to make a better decision. The third aspect is relevance, and there are countless sad examples in colonial history where ideas or practices from one country or one institution were transplanted and applied indiscriminately into another region to disastrous effect. And I think it's very important that when we provide an AI solution to a community, that the data that it's been trained on is relevant to the climate, to the context, to the social fabric, etc. So relevance is extremely important. And then finally is respecting the users, whether they are farmers or plant managers or whatnot. How can they take an active role in shaping the decision? They are not just a recipient of insights from the powerful AI, but can also tweak it, critique it, augment it with their own ideas and combine the two. So these are the 4 aspects. So optionality, convergence, relevance, and respect. And when you think about, in terms of policies, like we all know that most AI models today have been trained on not the greatest example of human literacy. So you all know that what we're talking about. Like the internet is not the most sanitized recipient of literary content, and that's what's been used to train our models today. So no wonder there's a lot of it's very Westernly centric English, mostly all of that. There is a good example of an attempt of fighting that biases, which is Latimer AI, that has actually trained their model on like racially and socially responsible text and content. So that the idea being that if the raw material being used to train the AI is of better quality, you have a much better chance of having better output from those systems. And it's much easier to correct some of those obvious biases at the source than trying to catch the most egregious aspect of what comes out of some of those LLMs mouth today.
Thank you so much, Francis. Wow, amazing. And that was not the shortest presentation. You got it. I appreciate you going into the second one. So since we only have about another 30 more minutes left of the conversation, we're going to make sure that we do get in contact with any of our participants that are out there and answer their questions. Before we go into that, let's see what questions we have here for Mark. Mark, you were mentioning to us before about the sustainable planet. Could you tell us more about, why did you write the book? Why did you write the book, Our Planet Powered by AI?
Yes, thank you so much again. I just felt that factors that were driving the policies and direction, both on the corporate world and government and policy sectors, were not aligned to the needs of humanity. Many people still in the world still are not using, never mind AI, they're not using basic digital capabilities and services, digital services. You have countries like Estonia, completely fully digitally enabled, where you could do all the services digitally. So is the country of Slovenia, so is in Japan. But a lot of people I felt were behind. And the reason they're behind is nobody is really standing behind the concept of making sure that there is the AI first to digital first model that or championing advocacy. Number one. Number two, I felt that there is so much talk on this optimization and efficiency. Whether we talk about optimizing our supply chains or optimizing our operations within a company, optimizing our content creation, whatever the case is, we got 96 to 97%, according to my research, focusing on this optimization, and not enough about how does it actually help humanity and how does it create a sustainable planet where resiliency and sustainability and focus on environment and healthcare. We still have so many people that are dying from deadly diseases that shouldn't be dying. My mother, for example, I'll go very personal right now, and I want to do this. It's in the book. My mother passed away last year. God bless her soul, in 2023, and she passed away because of negligence by American hospital systems, not relying upon capabilities done by humans, but not relying upon data that they should have been analyzing continuously and monitoring her information. She came in a hospital with a minor problem, but then she apparently acquired induced fungus within the system, and she wasn't properly tested. At least they were not seeing her deterioration over a period of time. They didn't pick up the signals. So data is everything. And we are letting our vulnerable people, seniors, for example, people that are young, people that are underserved, underprivileged, we're letting them down because we have, if you are wealthy and you will come from the upper class, you could go to the best physicians, best possible, and they will focus on your needs. But if you're there and you're not getting this full 360 degrees data that you need to do consistent real-time measurements and analysis, you're gonna sacrifice sometimes of your life. So I think I think we don't need to necessarily focus on only efficiency. I think we got to focus on humanity. We got to focus on making sure that we solve the greatest challenges and greatest problems that my colleagues mentioned and I mentioned in the beginning of the call. And we got to focus on finding those things in real time. We can't, our life is very precious day by day. And what we're doing right now is we're putting all this energy. Big tech is doing its own stuff, and controlling this world of AI. Look, the control of artificial intelligence today, let's not beat around the bushes. 90% of this is in the United States. Big chunk of it is in Silicon Valley. A little bit in Toronto, a little bit in New York and some other places, but it's not spread out evenly across the world. And that's just the creation of it. The adoption of it, even worse. So I wanted to change the paradigm, and I set a goal to myself that we need to have an advocacy program that is not just talking about the dystopian future of AI where everything just goes haywire, and we got to be very careful about existential threat. I'm worrying about how AI is solving those critical challenges, the greatest problems that we're facing as a humanity day by day, and helping real people on the streets, whether it's here in the United States or Eastern Europe or Indonesia or India or other places. And that's why I decided to write this book. And I also wanted to step in and just point out one other thing. If we look into the future, we look 5-10 years from now, what's going to happen with all of this? I believe we're probably headed in a direction where AI is going to be, they're going to be equivalents of what we're doing as human beings with very, very smart cognitive agents. They'll be connected on the edge to very sophisticated large language models or small language models specific on the task. But I believe that in the future, in the next 5 to 10 years, every single task that we're doing as human beings, we will have a whisper agent, a conversational agent, a cognitive agent, and we have to be able to bring this into society. We can't have them run around the world, and we can't have the enterprises take the full momentum and steal them for efficiency purposes. We got to figure out how we leverage all of those cognitive capabilities that are going to be around us for good of humanity. And it's going to happen. I am convinced that what Mark Cuban, I'm in Texas here, Mark Cuban said it right. There are going to be organizations that are going to focus on AI and are going to do extremely well. And there are going to be others which are not, which are going to be, unfortunately, out of the picture. And the same thing is going to happen with human life. If you're not taking advantage of all of those capabilities, weather predictions, health predictions, longevity, issues related to our biodiversity, if you're not taking advantage and you're not relying on it properly, you don't have access to, we're going to get in trouble. So we need to have a very comprehensive approach, how we leverage all of this content, all this information, all of this intelligence. And by the way, also, I would not be so surprised if in the next 5 to 10 or 15 years, we will have humanoid robots. You wouldn't be able to tell the difference. Look, you are not able to tell the difference now if this is Mark speaking right now, a system. It is me speaking right now, but the technology is so sophisticated right now, generative AI, that especially as we're making advances with OpenAI and Anthropic and Cohere, you're not going to be able to have to tell the difference. So in the future, we're going to have a lot of humanoid robots, and I want those humanoid robots to do good things. I don't want them focusing on only optimization. I don't want them focusing on malicious things. I don't want them terrorizing our population. I do not want them to get involved in military implications across the world. I want them to focus on saving lives. I want them to be companions. I want them to help people that are disabled, that have accessibility issues. And that's another major reason why I'm writing this book into the future, because the world today and the world 5, 10, 15 years, 20 years from now is going to look very different. So I hope it gave you a flavor why this had to be done. And we had to bring so much attention, because all of this attention, fantastic efforts done by Microsoft, acquisition, people are being hired. But how does it help a regular person on the street? And that was the point of the book.
Thank you so much, Mark. Amazing. Do you have any books on tape? Because I would definitely love to listen to you.
It is on tape. It's on audio. It's sold in
tape,
pretty much most of the countries around the world. It's going to be translated in multiple languages. Absolutely. And I also, Keith, I've seen a question. I think somebody I seen a question there that somebody asked me, and maybe I'll just take that on because I only have a few minutes and I got to run. But the question was, what is the alignment? What is the most important factors? I think the question was for aligning AI for development, but I also call it adoption. It's not only development, it's adoption for humanity. I think there's no easy answer here. And I think my panelists here today are probably going to add in their color, their perspective. But I will tell you that it has to do with value alignment. We are still not putting enough value alignment into AI products. Everything that we teach our kids is about our values. Do a good thing. Be a good neighbor. Make sure that you help an elderly person on the bus. Are we understanding their human values? Are we understanding the complexity of it? And how do we make sure that we advocate those human values for AI systems? Are we How do we determine which ethical framework, the one in Europe or the ones that are being deployed by corporates? How do we know which ones we're going to be essentially using? That is going to be the one which is going to protect us from all the harm, that is going to be aligned with human values. We don't want ethical frameworks that will stop innovation, stop it cold, where many small startups across, like what's happening in Europe, are just going to die off. We don't want that. We want to make sure those ethical frameworks are aligned with human values. We also want to make sure that the societal and cultural considerations are in fact there. Inclusivity, people spoke about, diversity, public engagement. We want to make sure that challenges that are technical challenges. I was recently speaking to my colleague Dr. Roman Yampolsky, who I met recently in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and he said safety. How could we make sure that safety are guaranteed? Do we have enough agencies in the government that could guarantee safety against manipulation of those AI systems? Because the trust has to be there. If we're going for a serious operation, if we're flying an airline, if we're taking a train, do we trust those systems? And how could we trust them? How could they be transparent? How could they be interoperable? How could regulatory and policy frameworks be actually transparent? Do we understand them? Do people who work in those regulatory issues, do they understand AI? We don't even understand that. What is effective regulation? Is effective regulation what happened in Europe, where everything has to be seamlessly looked at, what is risky or what is not, what is complex? How do we guide that development of regulations? How do we have global collaboration? Is it only going to happen through the United Nations, which I am very humbly involved, or is it going to happen through other, maybe bottom-up approaches? How will it affect economic and labor markets? We don't want systems to go, in fact, all over the world with all the major corporations without checks and balances. What if they take over a lot of the blue collar, white collar, and other work? We got to address this economic inequality immediately. We got to make sure that their benefits, they are distributed. We got to make sure that the global workforce is intact, meaning that we got to focus on reskilling, re-educating, and reimagining workforce of the future. Few more things: privacy and security, data privacy. Protecting data privacy is also important, and it's one of the big things in the European Act, and also what President Biden has pursued. That's critically important. If we're going to focus on trust, we got to take care of the data privacy issue. We got to take care of our security measures. We don't want to have misuse of AI for malicious and other purposes. Security is a must. But at the same time, we must continue research and development. We can't stop. No one is stopping. China is not stopping. Other countries in the Middle East are not stopping. We have to encourage innovation in AI. We got to encourage it more with people that are underprivileged. And also we got to get more women involved in artificial intelligence more than ever. I've been talking a lot about this, in other countries that are actually overtaking even the United States now. Women have to be much more involved in STEM and in sciences, and this is a critical part of R&D. And continuous learning. Do not stop learning. Do not have this idea that you just finish your education, your high school, your college education, you become a PhD, you're a well-known scientist. Continue learning every day. I continue to learn and adapt every day. Be agile, be flexible, and be resilient. And I think when you combine all of those factors together, those are the factors that I think that are going to align critical adoption of AI for humanity, not only for the largest enterprises.
Thank you so much, Mark, for being here with us today. I realize that you do have to cut it short and be out a little bit earlier. We are looking forward to hearing more about you and learning more about you throughout the course of the Tech Leadership Lab, through other conversations that we may have in meetings. But the next question is now going to go over to Katrina. So Katrina, I'd like to talk about trust. I know Mark had just brought up trust, and we also did start with the conversation before. But also, what frameworks or models have been proven effective in fostering multi-sectoral collaborations that utilize AI to advance sustainable development goals between diverse sectors to achieve the goals? With this particular question, if you're going to work with diverse sectors, it's really hard because they need to really trust each other. And could you think of ways that we could actually gain trust while developing AI. And then also, you know, Mark had just mentioned about the importance of having women in AI, and I am so glad to be here today with two amazing, thought-provoking leaders. Thank you for all you're doing, and thank you for continuing on.
Well, so on the trust issue, so the interesting thing about it is from a technology point of view, the trust issue is actually being addressed more by a different technology that's also starting to reach the point of taking off, which is the whole blockchain technology, because that's blockchain. I mean, everybody thinks of it as Bitcoin, but blockchain basically just a trusted ledger. Like I'm by no means, this is not my area of expertise, but I'm technical enough to understand that basically it's like a record that is immutable, so you can't change it, and if it gets changed, people recognize it. So that's where the trust comes from, right? So at some point, and there's a lot of research being done here, and there's a lot of work being done to because it feels like AI is kind of lacking the trust part, but then blockchain can provide it, and there'll be tools out there, and there'll be solutions out there soon. I know, because there's a lot of smart people working on this problem. So the trust part will be addressed on that side. What's the other question that you asked?
Well, yeah, we can actually expand on that, because Mark was mentioning that he is actually here with us, but we could have actually just taken Mark's picture and his voice, and we could have created a deep fake for Mark. It's like, so what type, there's plenty of technology I know they're coming out with right now, so you can see if it's actually like the real person there, or
Correct.
if it's someone else that's really manipulating it. So
correct. So that's what you do. You put it on the blockchain, and then everybody knows that that's it, and there's only one copy of it, and all that kind of stuff. But there's gonna have to be tools that are written on top of that, so that it's accessible to us. And just like machine learning and models who have been out there for a long time, but until OpenAI created ChatGPT, and it's accessible to everybody in the world, and then so everyone's like, oh wow, there's this thing called the large language model, that kind of thing, and then everybody starts thinking about how they can use it. The same thing has to happen on that side, which it hasn't yet, on the side of blockchain and smart contracts and all that. But that's for me, I think that is the one technology that is trying to address that part. But the other thing, being able to recognize whether something is a deep fake or all that. I mean, there's a lot of smart people trying to figure that out with like watermarks and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, we just, I don't know. I mean, that's a hard one. We just have to.
Do you believe maybe there should be some type of watermark, like you were mentioning, like if someone is trying to print like US currency, that there's actual, like it's transcripting into the background of the pixels, showing the printer identification number, where it came from, and some of the information too, to find out who it actually links back to? Do you think that there should be some type of way to trace it?
I believe there already is starting to be. I mean, I created an image last night for one of the for in my presentation, and but Gemini, and it did say Gemini created this image, and and all that. So I know it's coming now. Like I said, somebody has to build tools to make it useful to everybody, so that they can find that stuff, but it shouldn't be that hard to do. I mean, that's like photographs already now have location metadata that have location, all this kind of stuff. I mean, it's a fascinating topic, all the whole trust thing. I think what's scarier is that even the smartest people working on building these models, out of deep neural networks and that kind of thing, they don't quite understand how exactly it works. How exactly can these, can Gemini and GPT-4 and all, create all these essays and poems and stuff like that from just predicting the next word. Deeply they don't quite understand why. And so if you can't quite understand, how, even the smartest scientists working on this stuff, if they can't quite understand that, how are we going to get to the level of certainty that something like works and will not break and all that? Because
Definitely.
that's the hard part. I mean, the last few decades, I mean, I worked in QA and it was very easy to do it. It still had a lot of problems, but you could easily say, okay, this, because you could follow the code because it's basically code that you've written. But now with machine learning, it's the other way around. So that's what's scary and interesting to me. But there are so many smart people working on this topic. So I'm sure at some point we'll have a breakthrough.
Thank you so much, Katrina. And it's amazing to be just to serve alongside of you on this panel today. This is great. Now we're going to go over to Maya, and I'd like to know, how can we ensure that the benefits of AI are fully utilized across all sustainable development goals related to environmental sustainability? What strategies should be implemented to enhance AI's contribution to achieving these SDGs?
Thank you for the question. I think there are several core parameters that we should consider when we're speaking about the delivery of SDGs. There is a pretty big gap between the theory, the initial initiation of the SDGs looked like quite a promising tool. And as mentioned earlier by some of the remarks, the delivery and the actual results of how we are seeing the SDGs coming into reality hasn't been too substantial. To try and promote this further, we definitely need to see much more international collaboration. SDGs represent international problems, things that are part of our collective action. We are seeing initial collaborations when it comes to AI, but some of the discussions on the regulation hindered a bit some of the initiatives. We are working a bit more on this in the Global Partnership on Artificial Intelligence as we are gathering international experts. And of course, there are a lot of efforts in the different UN organizations trying to show how we can discuss this topic from a more collective, cross-cultural approach. And this leading me to the second point that I think most strategies should take into consideration is the fact that the delivery of SDG has to be culturally sensitive and has to be agile enough. We cannot only say that we are looking at this bottom-up guidelines and goals. We need to see much more discussions on the localization of the goals. There are sub-goals, it's true. And still, because we're seeing so many delivery gaps, there should be much more discussions into everything connected to the creation of local mechanism, ensuring the delivery of SDGs, understanding the sociocultural nuances of both the places, the countries, the cultures, the audiences we're engaging with, and in the same time, how technologies intersect with them. And not just technologies, we're talking about how economic factors are intersecting with the delivery of SDGs. And this perhaps is the bigger point that I think is definitely should be a core guideline from any strategy connected to the delivery of SDG, is the understanding that there is a very strong intersectionality of the fulfillment of SDGs with any other artificial or natural factor. AI is a great example because AI has different intersection with each of the SDGs. If we're speaking about AI in water management, AI in education, we need to make sure that our strategies, our delivery mechanisms, each of them separately, has enough cultural sensitivity to, first of all, address the gaps, understand what is the scope of opportunity, and making sure that we're not remaining with this very high level ideal vision of sustainable development goals. Because if we do want to put some more concrete numbers, we need to start acting in a way that we can measure this. And this leads me to the last point. We need to see more measurement and tracking, trying to see how we can actually turn some of these goals to be more local, measurable, and tracked across the different places. And I think that all of this will be able to bring us to a more rigorous delivery of the sustainable development goals across places. It's a gradual process, but it will be, I think, a better journey to go for.
Wow, thank you so much. You're just amazing shares here today. I'm so glad that we're recording this and we're going to get this shared out to everybody. So now we're going to go over to Kat. We're going to go back to you, Kat. Considering the urgent, oh, we already went through this one over here. Actually, no, we did not. So considering the urgency of the climate crisis, what immediate actions driven by AI should stakeholders prioritize to make a significant impact on climate change response? Are there any quick wins or low-hanging fruits?
So AI is all about data, right? So I mean, our AI is only as good as the data that we give it. So I think one of the things I believe Google actually is doing this is trying to curate and get you know, a list of all the types of data that would be very important and useful for. So I think that's something that but that we can all do, and that's an immediate action. Is just you know, the optimizing all these systems. AI is really good at optimizing, finding energy efficient improvements, early warning systems for disasters. I mean, we can't stop the climate disasters yet, but at least if we have better warning systems, that's something AI can do really well already. I actually made in my presentation, there was a list of a few things and there were 2 companies already, doing that using AI. Let's see. Another thing would be like just trying to try to make things more scalable, right? I mean, they have all these little projects and everything. So now we can see that it's already helping, and in small domains. So let's work on the scalability so we can, we can make it more, it can solve bigger and bigger problems. I think those are kind of the quick wins. There's so many others. It's hard to name them all. I mean, AI is just at the point now where it can improve so much everywhere.
And what I can say is I love that you spoke about disaster, because I have 7 years of disaster management experiences responding to disasters across the country, from tornadoes, hurricanes to floods, and really being on the operation, seeing the impact that it has throughout the full disaster cycle, from response, or actually from just making sure that we're preparing for everything, then we're responding, and then working through the recovery stage. And I just think it's amazing the impact that AI could have through each one of those stages. Just finding that data first. Of course, we don't know exactly what's going to happen exactly with that event, but we could also, if we have some really good instructions and data sets in there, then we could mitigate the loss of life and property, and also mitigate the levels of stress that people are going to feel, because they're going to have the proper tools. Again, utilizing AI as a tool instead of as like your competitor. This AI is going to take me out of my job. I'm no longer going to have a job. But if you actually just sit back for a second and you pause and you realize you now have the opportunity to work with a tool called AI AI could help you with your work-life balance. It's going to make your family a lot happier because you're going to be home a lot quicker, and you're going to be able to plan out your schedule a lot easier, and you're going to be able to save lives and make an impact. And I thank each and every member of our panel today. I am so humbled and honored to be here with all of you today, and our participants that have been in the audience for the past 2 hours, just sitting back and watching us, and for all the work of the Tech Leadership Lab. Just amazing work that you did putting together this summit, and looking forward to future opportunities for engagement. Just quickly, I know we're at the end right now, but I just wanted to go around the room quickly with our panelists that are on the call still. And we also want to thank Mark. He's already signed off today, but Mark's energy is amazing. I could tell you, I will be downloading his book on Kindle. Like, that's going to be my driving music. I'm really looking forward to hearing it. I hope it's his voice too as well. But anyway, so we're going to go around the table quickly just before we close out, and just to have like a final thoughts from our panelists that are on here today.
I gotta go. So
okay. Katrina, Katrina just left. Well, thank you, Katrina, for being here with us. Francis, if we can go back to you, if we can just have your final thoughts for the day.
Yeah, sure. Back when we would have said, sorry, I'm late. It was hard to find parking. Today is sorry, I was muted. And I'm still, no. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Yep.
All right. So, yeah, I think really for me the key to success in our endeavors is let's engage our people, let's engage our employees, let's engage our partners, our business partners, the people living next to our businesses, our governments. That's where the real power of AI is in enabling us to connect at scale.
Thank you so much, Francis, for that ad. And we appreciate you being here with us and looking forward to learning and growing with you in the future. Maya, now back to you, if you can just give us some closing remarks.
Sure thing.
And a call to action. If you have a call to action for us, that'd be great too.
Definitely.
What should we do? How could we save the world?
First of all, using AI. I think that there have been so many negative discussions that we should not use it. It's too scary, it's too dystopian, it will replace us humans. AI is here to stay. AI can be a very good friend of ours when we understand what it can do to the planet, understanding the harms. But more than anything, we understand the immense contributions it can bring to so many lives out there. We are seeing this already in so many disciplines of climate. It requires attention, it requires a new learning. And I think this is probably the best thing that I think AI brought to our life, is the understanding that each of us, wherever we are in the world currently, needs to learn a new discipline in a way, be agile enough, flexible in thinking, and understanding that in the age of technology, and especially of AI, we need to learn things every day, new things about ourselves, about the discipline, and about how we can actually solve some of the more urgent issues, such as climate. And AI, I believe, will be the way going forward. So that's on my side.
Thank you, Maya, for being here with us. And I just want to say what an amazing day it's been. A huge thank you again to our fantastic panelists for sharing your insights, and to everyone who joined the discussion. Your input has been really invaluable. So as we wrap up today's session, let's just keep the momentum going. I don't want this just to be like, hey, just like, I went to this great movie before, but oh, never mind. And oh, what's on TV tonight? Or what are we eating? I want us to continue the conversation that we had today. This is just the beginning. It's up to each of us to take what we've learned and put this into action in our own communities, whether it's making a small change in our daily lives or getting involved in larger initiatives. Every step counts. Together, we can make real difference. So thank you all for being a part of this important conversation. Let's keep the work together. Let's keep working together to create a better future for all. And again, I just have so much gratitude for everybody. Thank you, Tech Leadership Lab. And please make sure that you like and share any of the posts that are here. And if you're currently not a member, make sure you click on the like button and like the Tech Leadership Lab, and to tell your friends, tell your family about the wonders of AI, what you learned today, because remember, we could make the difference. Be that change that you'd like to see in the world. Thank you, everyone. Hope you have a great remainder of your day, and looking forward to seeing you soon.